Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, Johnny Talks. Today we're going to continue talking about the Ohio 11th District congressional race in which Senator Nina Turner is running. We have got some important updates, and also we have the first debate that was held by the Jewish Democrats for the seat. Should be interesting. First, Governor Mike DeWine, the Republican governing Ohio, has set the dates for the election. The primary will be held on August 3rd, according to this article from Fox 28, and the general election will be held on November 2nd. Now let's look at how Nina Turner is doing. First, by looking at her many endorsements. As you can see, this long list consists of everyone that, when the Wikipedia article was last updated, endorsed Nina Turner. There have been many more in later times. So, including these many organizations, you see the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the Democratic Socialists of America, Our Revolution, and Move On. The Justice Democrats said in a statement, for instance, that they are very proud of supporting Nina Turner because she has stood with the progressive movement since day one. And that, I believe, is a very true statement. She has been with them through the Bernie Sanders 2016 and the 2020 campaign. Nina Turner even abandoned Hillary Clinton for Bernie and the progressive movement at a time when that was very unpopular in DC. And then we have people that endorsed him. As you can see, many members of the squad and other progressive Democrats in the House, and also local people like the mayor of Cleveland, Ohio. Ocasio-Cortez said in a statement that Nina Turner is a bold, unapologetic progressive who has spent her entire career advocating for the working people of Northeast Ohio. That was said in this article by Bloomberg. Apparently, many people are very excited about having Nina in the Congress, and IOC clearly states that she needs her, and I think so as well, because you see many of the progressive Democrats not being forceful enough in fighting against the establishment. Nina Turner, on the other hand, could be exactly the fighter that the progressive movement needs. And also, the trade union movement has shown up strongly for Nina Turner. You see the National Nurses United, you see the Amalgamated Transit Union, and that's in both the United States and Canada, and some other unions. I have not everyone on this slide. However, some unions have also supported Shontel Brown. So that's endorsements, but let's take a look at another indicator of how the race stands. One of the probably most important ones, except for polls, but there have been no polls. So let's look at money. So the FEC released some numbers in our previous video. I recommend you check that out. Now the amounts have grown much bigger. For instance, Nina Turner's campaign have collected upwards of $2 million now. That's much for a campaign that's people funded with no corporate cash. And probably second, because I couldn't find any data from the other candidates, is Shontel Brown once again, and she has raised just under $700,000. That's quite a lot, but it shows that Nina Turner's progressive movement is leading, at least in endorsements and in money. Let's see what else is there before I start the debate. Well, you could also visit the Nina Turner campaign website, ninaturner.com, and here you can find information about Nina, possibilities for volunteering, and also her story, policy positions, and so on and so forth. Now, without further ado, let's get into the debate. I have made a supercut and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the JDCA's 11th Congressional District of Ohio's Democrat Candidate Forum, hosted by the Jewish Democratic Council of America's Ohio chapter and co-sponsored by Bend the Arc, Jewish Action Cleveland. My name is Ron Klein, and I am chair of JDCA and a former congressman from Florida. I'm also a former Cleveland myself, growing up near Cedar Green and University Heights. I graduated at Heights High, the Ohio State University, and Case Western Reserve University School of Law. My roots run deep through Ohio's 11th Congressional District, and I'm thrilled to see so many qualified candidates run for this important seat. We are thrilled to be joined today by all 7 candidates running to become the Democratic nominee and succeed Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who was nominated by President Biden and Vice President Harris to serve as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. JDCA is proud to support her nomination and continues to urge the Senate to move forward with her confirmation. Former Representative John E. Barnes Jr., Chairwoman Shontel Brown, former City Councilman Jeff Johnson, Tariq K. Shabazz, former Senator Shirley Smith, former Senator Nina Turner, and former Representative Brian Flannery. We thank you for spending time with us this morning.
On behalf of the JDCA Ohio chapter, we're thrilled to host the first Democratic candidate forum race. Our chapter volunteers made over 55,000 voter tax for general election, and our name will be Democrats from down ballot here. Ohio's 11th Congressional District, Ohio District, has already been on great work to the Jewish community. We are proud of the first district that includes majority black precincts between Cleveland and Akron, and the largest Jewish population of voters in Ohio. This district was created in 1993 redistricting, and Congressman Lusos, the first African American elected in the state of Ohio, was elected on to serve as the founding member of the congressional black caucus, changing the path of Cleveland and country.
And with that, I'm happy to introduce JDCA's CEO, Haley Soifer, who will moderate today's forum. Prior to work for JDCA, Haley worked for 4 members of Congress, including our now Vice President, Kamala Harris, and in the Obama administration. For the past 2.5 years, Haley has led JDCA, and I'm thrilled she'll be serving tonight as our moderator. Over to you, Haley.
Thank you, Ron and Adam. I'm thrilled to moderate this panel and even more thrilled to see so many candidates running in this race. Without further ado, I will now turn it over to the 7 candidates with us for their opening statements. With the permission of the candidates, we will be addressing everyone by first name. Unfortunately, John Barnes Jr. will not be able to stay with us for the remainder of the forum due to an unfortunate family emergency. Our thoughts are with John and his family at this difficult time, and while we were unable to reschedule the forum, we greatly appreciate him being with us today to give his opening statement, so he will go first. We will proceed after John, followed by Brian, Jeff, John, Nina, Shirley, Shontel, and Tariq. So John Barnes, over to you for your opening statement.
Thank you so very much, Haley and JDCA, for pulling together this forum. I think that is a very, very important opportunity to hear about the next stage in the evolution of the 11th Congressional District of Ohio, which is a rich tapestry of cultural diversity and very, very important for Ohio. I am unfortunately, as you have stated, unable to participate. I lost my mother-in-law. She was 99 years old, and on March 8th, she would have turned 100. It's a difficult time for our family, but I know her, and I know that she would want me to participate in this forum, and I am honored to be here today. I think it's very, very important for me just to express that my support for the state of Israel has been steady and consistent over the years, both personally and as a public official. And you can be assured that as Congressman, I will continue to do so. I think that given the time period, that one of the most important things that I have to tell you is this. You have a friend in John Barnes, and I would have a focus on bringing the Jewish leaders together to hear from them frequently about issues that are affecting the Jewish community, not only here, but around the world. And so I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to talking with all of the candidates over a period of time this campaign once it commences. And so thank you so very, very much for your leadership and the important work that you are doing, not only in the Jewish community, but to spread good cheer throughout our community. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, John. And again, our prayers and our thoughts are with you and your family. We will now hear from Brian.
Hey, good morning. I'm Brian Flannery, and I'm not a career politician. After 9 years, I spent the last 90 years in the private sector, small business, and management of a healthcare provider. I'm running for Congress because I need more members with real life experience, raising them, dealing with rising healthcare, whether it's for family, at home, or for nursing home, and filing health laws. Our 11th congressional district, 320,000 Democrats, 20,000 voters.
From Jeff.
And thank you for having me today. I have lived and worked in the 11th district all of my life, and my family has been here for over 120 years. I know the district. I'm the most experienced candidate in this race. I have worked in public service for over 30 years, 23 of those years in elective office. I have served in 3 branches of local government in Cleveland, legislative, executive, and judiciary. I have also served in 2 levels of government, the local and also as a state senator. The 11th district in the past has chosen as its congresspersons 3 attorneys who were experienced, qualified, and committed to use their talents fighting for the citizens. I am an attorney, and I have earned 3 college degrees. Experience matters, qualifications matter, being prepared to serve matters. I am ready to go to Congress and stand with the Biden administration to build America back better. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Nina. And Nina, please unmute.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the JDCA for hosting this wonderful forum and for all of you who are joining us today. I'm Nina Turner, and I believe in creating an America as good as its promise in the Ohio 11th District. I know that many of us, all of us actually, have been impacted by the COVID-19, and the lack of leadership that preceded us has caused a great deal of pain for people, both personally and also for our small businesses. We had an administration that did everything in its power to divide us and to not provide for the material needs of the people in this country, especially those who have been left behind and marginalized. When I go to Congress, I am going there to stand up for all of the people. I am not going to Congress just to go along to get along. I am going there to stand up for the needs of the people, and I will work with anybody, a conservative, moderate, or progressive, who is about the business of the people, period.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Kelly.
Thank you. I'm Shontel Brown. In 2018, I had the opportunity to visit Israel with other elected officials from around the country. As a child of faith, I was eager to see the religious sites, but what I'll never forget were the similarities and familiarities of communal culture shared between the Jewish and Black communities. While there, we visited a kibbutz near the Gaza Strip. It was an unexpected yet familiar experience of community, camaraderie, and collaboration. Everyone shared what they had to offer for everyone else's benefit, but there was also an unforgettable feeling of vulnerability. When I think about the emergency bomb shelters scattered throughout the areas where people live, work, and play, visiting the state solidified why the bond between U.S. and Israel is and should always remain strong. Not only do we share democratic values, but the shared experience between the Jewish community and the Black community on issues dealing with hatred, persecution, only amplifies the importance of our partnership to work together to advance our common goals. As the only elected official in this race, I will continue to work to strengthen this crucial international relationship if elected to represent the 11th Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we will hear from Tarek.
Can you hear me?
We do.
Okay. My name is Tariq K. Shabazz, and I'm running for the United States House of Representatives for the 11th Congressional District of Ohio. I have the shared life experience that so many of our residents are facing, the education, as well as the military and professional background. I'm a husband, I'm a political scientist, and I'm a Navy veteran. But before I got any of those titles, I was just a little kid that grew up in the inner cities of Cleveland, Ohio. And I know exactly what people are facing right now. I feel the struggle they're facing. When I was a child, my next door neighbor was murdered in my backyard. I've seen gun violence so much it impacted the way that I thought, and I understand exactly fundamentally what the individuals throughout this district are facing. They need a fighter in Congress. I know what it feels like to be voiceless. And for the people that feel voiceless, your words, your thoughts, your concerns will be echoed throughout the halls of Congress. It is high time that we actually fight for our people and we actually improve the conditions that have been debilitating and have damaged and taken the resources away from our people from building for so long. To the great people of District 11, after these elections, you can call me your congressman. I'm Tariq K. Shabazz, and this is our moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Tariq. We will now move to questions. We will start with some drafted questions from JDCA and Ben the Arc, and from there we'll go to audience questions. As a reminder, please send your questions to info@jewishdems.org. Our first questions regarding COVID-19 and economic equity. In 2020, Cleveland had the highest poverty rate among large cities in the United States, and it's a city with the 6th highest income inequality. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic crisis further worsened economic disparities in the U.S. If elected to Congress, how would you support economic recovery in the district? And what measures would you take to combat the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on communities of color? Thank you, Nina.
So those were the opening statements of the candidates. As you can see, there are very many of them, and not everyone is relevant. Many of them are just old politicians that served in some capacity in the state or maybe the district and is now looking to revitalize their careers. I couldn't find any FEC data for a number of them. They have websites, but I'm in doubt that any one of them will make a significant mark, considering that Shontel Brown and Nina Turner are the most prominent ones and probably also the best funded. So I will only include their answers in the rest of the supercut, because if not, the video will be too long. However, if you want to watch the whole debate, and I recommend you do so, I will leave the link in the description. Now, a quick word about the people hosting this debate. It's the Jewish Democratic Council of America, as you could see, and you may have noticed that there is a clear bias in some of the candidates' answers towards especially Israel and their interests, a question that has become kind of controversial on the left. Shontel Brown did in her opening statement, in my opinion, pander, and she will do so also throughout the debate, while Nina Turner stays very loyal to her progressive principles and doesn't kind of pander to right-wing Jews or people that want the Israeli government and Israel to be supported. Now let's look at the rest of this debate so we can vet the two candidates.
Well, it's certainly clear that the last administration was woefully unprepared and failed the American people miserably. And we lost 41% of Black-owned businesses nationwide. I'm certainly pleased that the current administration is moving quickly and they have a national vaccination plan and package. I am disappointed that the $15 an hour minimum wage increase did not get in there this time, but I am certain that we're going to continue to fight to do that because the economics of the African American community and other communities of color is vitally important. And I fully support what Senators Sherrod Brown and Senator Sanders are doing and some others to continue to push. Racism is a public health crisis and we have to deal with it as such. We have to go deep, we have to go wide, and we have to ensure that we are making that change on all levels of government. And Medicare for All is certainly one of the best ways to help to eradicate this conundrum. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to dealing with systemic racism.
Shontel.
Thank you very much. People are hurting from this pandemic and its devastating impact on our economy. We need short-term relief, layoff preventions, and equitable vaccination delivery. We need to get checks out to people now, and we need to keep the moratorium on eviction so that people who are struggling can stay in their homes. And when it comes to the vaccine, there are barriers in communities of color to getting the vaccine. There is also hesitancy, but transportation is another issue when it comes to vaccine accessibility. I was pleased to see the work being done at the Neon Health Center locally here, but we need more of that. The fact of the matter is, these disparities have been here for a long time, and they were accelerated by COVID-19. I'm proud the Biden-Harris administration is prioritizing health equity, and I will certainly work with them to ensure COVID relief is distributed equitably. As an elected official, I'm not new to this issue. In fact, when I worked with First Year Cleveland, I was inspired to introduce and pass the bipartisan legislation to declare racism as a public health crisis here in Cuyahoga County. So I have a plan and a record of addressing this issue. Thank you.
If elected to Congress, how will you address criminal justice reform?
Thank you, Samia. For the order, we will first hear from Jeff, followed by Nina, Shirley, Shontel, Tariq, and Brian. Nina.
Well, it's certainly been clear for generations that the criminal justice system is inherently unjust. The Black and brown and indigenous people, and when you add class in there is certainly a class and a caste dynamic. And we have to completely reimagine how we do not only policing, but the entire system from the judiciary to the streets. So implementing alternatives to incarceration, ending mandatory minimum sentences, ending for-profit prisons and also detention centers, and creating standards for police forces. I will tell you, as somebody that represented half of the 11th congressional district, and when I had 1 month left on my Senate, 1.5 months left on my Senate term, and Tamir Rice was shot on the playground, I called Governor John Kasich, not as a state senator, but as a Black mother who was in pain because of what happened to that young Black boy, and said that we have to do something. And collectively, he and I, along with some other legislators, went to the governor, and he created the task force on community and police relations and appointed me a co-chair of that. And we traveled this entire state, hearing the cries and the fears of people throughout this community, and continue to push for that change. And for the first time in Ohio's history, we created standards on policing for law enforcement agencies. That's the first step. It is not the end, but it's a truly reformed criminal in this country, in this state, and in this country.
Thank you very much. Here, I led the bipartisan legislation in Cuyahoga County that declared racism as a public health crisis, which addresses criminal justice reform. We have to root out disparities in the system, and our system must focus on redemption and rehabilitation. We must reduce the number of incarcerated people while also reducing crime. We need to end the use of private prisons, and we need to end cash bail. In Cuyahoga County, I've also been exploring options so people who call 911 have crisis intervention options and don't have to rely on the police. There's legislation in Congress called the Cahoots Act, which does that on the national level, which I would support. Additionally, in Congress, I would also support the George Floyd Justice for Policing Act that they recently passed, as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because I strongly support strengthening civil rights laws and advancing comprehensive justice reform. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn to our third question. This one is regarding anti-Semitism and extremism. In the past year, we've seen a startling rise in anti-Semitism, hate groups, domestic extremism, and conspiracy theories, as well as the rise of white supremacy, which former President Trump refused to condemn and instead incited and fomented, culminating in the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. In fact, today, as we speak, the House of Representatives is out of session due to a threat by a QAnon conspiracy theory and extremists. If elected, what measures would you take to combat the rise of anti-Semitism, domestic extremism, and white supremacy? Nina, we will start with you, followed by Shirley, Shontel, Tariq, Brian, and Jeff. Nina.
Yeah, dealing with issues of this magnitude, legal we must use the law, and we also must use bringing the communities together. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, racism, bigotry, and this has been the case for quite some time. And what happened on January the 6th is a manifestation of the unfinished business in this country, and we have to continue to call it what it is. And as a Black woman in America, I certainly understand that in this country, white nationalism threatens the Jewish community and it threatens the Black community with violence and terror. And the white supremacists who hate my Black sons hate your Black sons as well. And we must continue to unite and fight against that. In Congress, I will continue to push for the civil rights efforts and laws that will continue to change this, but also to be a bridge in my own community, building the types of communication that we need. Because the change that we are going to have in this country when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism and bigotry will not just happen on the floor of the Congress. We're going to have to take it to the streets and build unity against bigotry and continue to fight. Justice is not a destination. It is something that it continues generation after generation.
Shontel.
Thank you very much. As an African American whose people have been subjected to institutional racism for more than 400 years, I have some understanding of the impact this kind of prejudice and hatred can have. The attack on the Capitol was horrifying. The attackers were wearing swastikas, and this was a culmination of what we saw in Charlottesville, where white supremacists were chanting, "Jews will not replace us." To combat this, there are at least 3 steps I would like to take in Congress. First, I strongly support the No Hate Act, which gives law enforcement better tools to combat hate crimes and improves reporting mechanisms. Second, I will always oppose the global BDS movement, which uses anti-Semitic rhetoric and arguments to weaken, isolate, and delegitimize Israel. Third, I believe we need to rebuild a political structure where leaders call out hate and anti-Semitism, coupled with investing more in the Holocaust education. Thank you for the question.
To our 4th question, which is regarding Israel. In 2016, the Obama administration signed a 10-year memorandum of understanding between the United States and Israel, providing for $38 billion in military assistance and life-saving missile defense programs. Do you support this memorandum of understanding without conditions? That is, do you support providing U.S. security assistance and funding for missile defense programs to Israel at the levels agreed upon in 2016? Shontel will be done, followed by Tariq, Brian, Jeff, Nina, and Shirley. Shontel.
Thank you very much. Yes, I fully support the Memorandum of Understanding between the U.S. and Israel that was negotiated by the Obama administration with no further conditions. It is important to point out the majority of these funds are actually spent in the United States. When I was in Israel, I saw firsthand the imminent threats facing the country when I stood on the Golan Heights, as well as when I visited the kibbutz near the Gaza Strip. As an American, I am proud of our government in that they invested in Israel's Iron Dome system, which has saved the lives of many Israelis, as well as our own U.S. service members. So thank you for the question.
I believe firmly in the right of Israelis to live in safety and peace, free from fear of violence and terrorism from Hamas and other extremists. So, of course, I support continued U.S. aid to Israel to confront the security challenges. I also believe that our Palestinians are entitled to the same human rights and safety from violence and to be able to have self-determination in a state of their own. I am strongly pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. I have taken exception with some of the policies of the current Israeli government. I do not think that Netanyahu is following a path to lead to peace. And in my view, the role of the United States of America is to be an even-handed arbiter in the Middle East and to ensure that each side lives in peace and security and freedom.
I want to make sure we're equitable here. We have heard from everyone. Great. All right. We will now move to a speed round. For questions specifically on the issue of Israel, I will say at the outset, these questions were drafted by JDCA with input from Jewish community leaders in Cleveland and in the district, and they should be answered with yes or no. So our first question, do you support a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Question, which has input from, as I mentioned, Jewish leaders in the area, including Joe and Josh. Do you support the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, otherwise known as BDS? Again, it's a yes or no answer. Brian, we'll start.
No.
Jeff.
No.
Nina.
No, I personally do not, but I also do not support the criminalization of people who are peacefully organizing for political change.
Shirley.
No.
Shontel. Tariq.
No, but I will always advocate for ridding this world of human rights violations. So I will always advocate for that. Thank you.
Brian.
No again.
Okay, and our final speed-round question regarding Israel. This is actually broader than that and includes other issues in the Middle East. Do you support diplomatic efforts to return to the JCPOA for the Iran nuclear deal or some updated version of this deal? We will now move to more audience questions. Again, do send your questions to info@jewishdems.org. Just as a reminder, please address your questions to all 6 of our candidates. Our first question comes from Andy Cara, who is affiliated with Bend the Arc Jewish Action Cleveland, regarding immigration. Immigration is an issue that is very important to many in the Jewish community who are still connected to their immigrant roots. Ohio 11 is also home to 37,214 individuals who were born outside of the U.S. What does immigration reform mean to you? And if elected, what would your priorities be with regard to changing our current immigration system? Nina, we will start with you.
Yeah, immigration is certainly one of the strong foundations of our nation, bringing people together from different cultures. It is important that we deal with DACA, which I'm really happy to see that the current president is doing. We must make sure that we have open arms, and especially for immigrants coming to this country who are under some type of threat. And that not only is it what we do legally in the Congress, it's not only what we do in regards to passing laws and policies, but it's also about building bridges of understanding too in our respective communities. So as the next Congresswoman, I will both work in the Congress to that regard, but also be one in the community, building understanding and bringing communities together so that we can create a better world simultaneously with the policies that are passed on the federal level.
Thank you. The proposal that was unveiled by the Democrats on Capitol Hill for the pathway to citizenship is something that I would support, and that's my position as it relates to the people in Israel and those who have dual residency in Israel as well as America.
Our next question comes from Debbie from Akron. It is regarding gun violence. In large part due to gun violence, which reached its highest levels in Cleveland in 2020 since 1982, there have been 185 homicides. If elected to Congress, how will you work to end gun violence that's continuing to plague our communities, schools, and places of worship here for Ohioans and all Americans?
Thank you very much. We definitely need to take on the NRA head on. We have to hold gun manufacturers accountable, get weapons of war off the street, and ban the sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. These are the things that are destroying our communities, and we have to make better common sense gun laws. And I have to agree, this is not just a federal issue. It starts here locally, where we have our governor who has instituted a stand your ground law. These type of things don't make it safer for communities, they make it more dangerous. So we have to be willing to use our political voice and our political capital to ensure that the laws that we're drafting protect everyone in our communities. Thank you.
Yes, gun violence is a multifaceted challenge in our country, and it is the way, it has everything to do with the way that we're socialized in this nation. The Second Amendment is not an absolute, and we have too many people who treat it as if it is absolute. The framers of this country could never have imagined the types of weapons that we have right now, weapons right here on our streets every single day. And so we have to deal with this not just through legal means, not just through laws and policies, but we got to deal with this as a matter of the heart. And so as many people have been faced with gun violence in their family. You know, I had a relative who shot his father while he sat in his chair watching his favorite movie, and then went through the house and shot his mother. We have to deal with mental health challenges. We have to deal with economic challenges. We have to deal with the political challenges, because from Sandy Hook to this very moment, not to have certain leaders who are willing to stand up to forces that don't understand that we have to do a new thing in this country to deal with gun violence in all of its facets. That's political, economic, social, racial, and political. I will be there to continue to fight environment in this country.
Thank you. Our final set of audience questions, and we're trying to combine them, they're regarding climate change. And these questions come from Stephanie and Sue. I live both in Cleveland, but Stephanie's definitely in Cleveland. The Special Presidential Envoy on Climate, John Kerry, recently announced that we have only 9 years left to avert a complete climate crisis. We are already seeing the effects today of extreme weather, including what happened recently in Texas, and scientists predict that it will only continue to get worse. If elected, how will you support initiatives to meet this impending crisis? And are you prepared to help the district, state, and nation get off fossil fuels and move to renewable energy in an equitable manner? Shontel, we will start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I certainly believe in the principles around the Green New Deal. We need to ensure that we have a clean energy revolution and address the threats that we've experienced and witnessed here in the United States, especially around what happened in Texas. We need to ensure that we are 100% clean energy economy and net zero emissions by 2050. Building a more resilient nation. We talk about the electronic cars and things of that nature that will help us produce a much greener planet are steps that we need to take much more boldly and much more aggressively. So I'm proud of the fact that Joe Biden entered the Paris climate agreement on day one. And these are the type of initiatives that I would love to be able to work with Congress. If I'm so fortunate to represent the people of the 11th district, I want to work to help the Biden administration support these types of ideas and plans if I'm so fortunate to go to Congress. So thank you.
Nina.
Every single lever of justice is tied to taking care of Mother Earth, and for us as human beings, not just in this country, but all over the world. This is one where we're going to need all of our sisters and brothers across the globe to help us as a country, because we're going to help ourselves to eradicate the damage that we have done to Mother Earth. We got to kick certainly our addiction to fossil fuels and also ensure a just transition for workers in that field. We got to strengthen our national parks. And we have to eradicate environmental racism everywhere that it is. You know, Black children have higher rates of asthma than anybody else in this country. We know what happened in Flint and also in Toledo, Ohio. All of these things are manifestations of our inability to take care of Mother Earth. And I will continue to be a climate change activist and push for laws and legislation that will help to change it, not just in our country, but hopefully building a world that is fighting for the same thing. All of our lives depend on taking care of Mother Earth.
Sure. All. We deeply appreciate it. We have even more questions, and unfortunately we could not get to all of them, but we appreciate everyone who submitted questions. We will now move to 1-minute closing statements. Nina.
Thank you to the JDCA for holding this forum. I have two bookmarks for why I'm running in this campaign. One is from Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. What the people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. Part of that promise is Medicare for all, canceling student debt, a $15 an hour minimum wage, making sure that people don't have to choose between their medications and eating. An America as good as its promise. The other one comes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he talks about power and justice and how they should work hand in hand, or power and love. He said power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is anemic and sentimental. Power at its best is implementing the demands of love, and love at its best, or justice at its best, is correcting everything that stands against it. That is why I am running this race, to lift the people, not so much on one administration or another. I can work with anybody, but working with doesn't mean acquiescing to. My only special interest in the 11th Congressional District will be the residents of this district, and I will be honored to serve as your next Congresswoman.
Shontel.
Thank you. Thank you to the Thank you to the Jewish Democratic Council of America for the opportunity to share our positions on these very important issues. With 9 consecutive years of legislative experience and a proven track record of serving the people in this district, I believe I am best positioned and most prepared to fulfill the legacy of the Honorable Congresswoman Marcia Fudge and those who came before her. I am running to be a partner to the Biden-Harris administration and to help Speaker Pelosi pass an agenda to get the relief and the recovery into the hands of the people who have been hardest hit by this pandemic. And as the only elected official in this race, I have the unique privilege of having made decisions of over $200 million in COVID-19 relief funds and how they would be allocated to hospitals, small businesses, rental assistance programs, and job training efforts. So these are the things that I've done. These are the things that I would like to continue to do. And let's not be confused. Just because I am a Democrat, I am not so democratic that I can't work across the aisle to get things done. My legislation to declare racism as a public health crisis is proof of that. So I thank you so much for the opportunity again. And I'll take the predecessor, ChontelBrown.com.
So that was the debate, at least my supercut of it. So please let me know in the comment section what you think. I, on my part, thought that the distinctions are pretty clear between Nina Turner and Shontel Brown, if you think a little bit deeper about it than exactly what they said, because it seems to me that Shontel Brown gives the typical corporate Democrat answer to most of things. For instance, she says that she believes in the principles around the Green New Deal, and that could mean just about anything and will probably mean nothing. Nina is speaking more from the heart, I believe, but I don't think she is good enough drawing distinctions with Shontel Brown, for instance, on Israel, calling out her, I think, weakness on the climate question, and also on many other topics. For instance, I would have loved to see a broader discussion about money and politics. But with that, I think I will end this video here, and I want to thank you all for watching. And if you want to follow news about the Ohio 11th Congressional District Special Election, I suggest you stay on my channel, because that's pretty much what I've been doing on the channel for the last 2 videos. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.